welcoming Claude Stevens. Welcome, Claude. And also want to wish you happy birthday, too.
Thank you, Maureen.
Okay, Claude Stevens is my brother-in-law. He is a specialist in counseling. Tell us a little something about yourself, Claude.
Okay, I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I really got involved with suicide some years back when I was somewhat, I guess about 18 years old. I worked at the Illinois State Psychiatric Institute, and they specialized me with a young lady who was a victim of incest. She was like 21 years old. And she took a life. She took a life, and it's something I've never forgotten, because she said that she had to take a life because God deemed that she had committed a sin, that type of thing. So that stuck with me.
Okay, we're kind of hesitating. We're trying to get these headphones together here. My previous people that were in the studio had them all twisted up. And so I know we're going to work a little bit better on this situation with our microphones for my shows, because when I have sponsors that are sponsoring the shows, we don't want any delays in anything. So that's what we're doing here in the studio. You know, it's hard when you're trying to bring positive messages and messages of information to people, there's always a demon or Satan out here trying to keep you from getting everything working. You know, so that's why we're here, why we're delaying some of this stuff, because Satan's not going to work on this one. We're going to talk about blacks and suicide. We're going to talk about why so many pastors are committing suicide also. And we're going to talk about what can be done with the mental health issue and why the funding for mental health has deteriorated. What has happened to the mental health funding, and why our blacks, especially our African American males, are committing suicide. Okay, so I want to turn over here and welcome Rhonda B. Woods to In the Know with Mo.
Thank you, Madam Forte. Yes, this is me, Ms. Rhonda B. Here joining you today to see what exciting information we can share with you.
And what was so deja vu, Rhonda had a form. Rhonda B is she's my media sister, and she's also a photojournalist, and she's a journalist for a newspaper and a producer for cable television. But she had hosted a forum last week on suicide, and I'm not knowing but she was hosting that this was already scheduled. So that's one reason why we're bringing all the minds to the table to discuss blacks and suicide. Jennifer Sam North was with us last week as we talked about peace rallies, if they really work and what can be done, and what's the whole purpose of peace rallies if we just march and there's no solutions for jobs. So welcome, Jennifer, to In the Know with Mo.
Thank you.
All righty. So it turns out mental health, no fundings. Blacks and suicide is on the increase. Suicides are seemingly to be rating higher than the gun violence. Why is that?
I wouldn't go that far.
You wouldn't go that far? But there's a lot of suicides that are going on that are undocumented. You know.
If you look at the statistics,
Clark, can you move your mic a little closer to you? Okay.
If you look at the statistics, for suicide awareness, in American Suicide Association in the year 2008, said in the United States, the leading cause of death was suicide. 31,655 lives per year. Suicides are higher than homicides in motor vehicle accidents. And we had 18,000 deaths by homicide and 16,000 deaths by drunken drivers in the year 2007, and we had 31,000 suicides.
And suicides are very high. You know, we talk about violence, black on black violence, but it seems like black females will attempt suicide, but the black males, they carry the suicide out. Why is that?
It's the method of suicide. Black women may try to kill themselves by overdosing or taking pills or something, and sometimes someone may come and intervene, where a black male may take a gun and shoot himself, and that's it.
Okay.
This type of situation. But the point you made, Maureen, is a very good point. With that, the lowest death of suicide among all groups are African American women.
Mm-hmm.
Among all groups, Asians, Pacific, whatever, among all groups. That's something that should be studied. That's something that should be studied.
And why do you think that the women, African American women,
Well, it's African American females, not just women.
Okay,
Even young,
okay.
young girls commit the lower level,
Yeah.
period. It's African American females.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's so?
Because God destined us that way.
No.
He said,
We're strong.
No. What happens is, I think that what happens.
We're not laughing at death. I mean,
No.
death is not funny.
Laughing at Claude, he said no.
No, what I'm saying is, there's a lot of things that go into suicide.
Mhm.
Kids can be bullied.
Yes.
A lot of stuff in the gay, lesbian community, suicide, whatever. But somewhere, nothing. African American women have found some way to survive. A survival instinct, something that they have, and that's something that should be studied. If we had any other group or any other situation where there was that much disparity in terms of situation, it would be studied. It would be studied. I was at a conference and I mentioned it to a person. He says, "Well, it's middle class women," but that's not the case. Somewhere or another, African American women have found, with all the trials and tribulation, have found a way to survive. Have found a way to survive. And that's a topic for research.
And it's a topic for research because black women, black females have always had faced with the obstacles of, first of all, I'm a female and I'm black. So they've always had the obstacles to strive to do better. And I'm smiling because what I'm about to say, I'm looking at Rhonda. I grew up in a household. And we were not a rich family. And the family that I grew up with, we didn't have the best of everything, but we didn't know that we were poor. We always had something sweet. My mom would bake, always have something sweet, a cake. The cake might not have had icing on it, but it had jelly between the slices. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up in that type of, even though I grew up in a mixed household, it was still a poor family.
Because it doesn't, we always have the debate that it doesn't count the same because she had both her parents, her mom
Yes,
and dad.
yes, I was blessed to have both my parents, and plus I had older siblings. Like, basically my older sisters raised me seriously. My mom just had me, and then I was thrown to my older sisters, Mary and Amelia, who raised me seriously.
But even still in our household, I grew up with a single parent household, and my mom had 4 children that she had to raise. And believe it or not, it was often as things would go, because things didn't always go well. As children, you don't know what's good and what's bad.
Right.
You only know what you know, and it all seems okay to you at the time. And when things were not quite going well, we didn't have money, it wasn't enough to eat, my mom would always tell us that everything is a pass-through. So she was always preparing us not to give up hope, not to become, quote-unquote, suicidal, that things can happen, things will happen, but we'll make it through. And so, it was just always a foundation. It wasn't something that she acted like didn't happen in the real world.
And you know what I can't understand in this generation, this time, the word depression.
Mm-hmm.
I have never heard the word depressed or bored when I was growing up. I'm so bored, I'm depressed. Depression and bored was not a word in our household because there was always something to do. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have the latest telephone pages or anything like that, but we never heard the word depression. To me, the word depression was a white person's word. I'm bored. I mean, we didn't have time to be bored. We spent a lot of time outside. We spent a lot of time reading and doing stuff physically, being involved. And we came from a poor family. But now, all you hear from the poor kids to the rich kids to the affluenza children is the word depressed. He's depressed.
You know what, in our household now, we did, our mom, I can tell you, my mom, we had a strong mother, so she cured a lot of stuff. Now, it was 4 of us, and then we grew up in an extended family. It was 4 of us, and then my aunt's 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would say we were bored all the time. So, not all the time. We started off saying we were bored as young kids. And then my mom always had the solution. So if you're bored, it's like, okay, some days they would give you that dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you to read the dictionary, for those who can relate to that. Then other days they would give you the Bible. So we soon learned, not to say we were bored, because their solution to boredom was exactly what we had in mind. And so I look today, you know, I'm in education, so you know I work at the school system.
Right, right.
So I look at today how these kids, they'll tell us quickly at school, I am so bored, I am so bored. But they're so used to being entertained. And I get so tickled at them. You know, they'll be sitting around listening to my stories about when I was a kid. You know, and our parents did not entertain us. I don't care how bored you were. I don't care what was going on. The one thing that was not the solution was for your parents to entertain you. And the longer you sat in there with them and tell them how bored you were, the more they came up with something that you didn't want to do.
Right,
You know, I think my mom, you know, if you just really was bored, she would give you a toothbrush. I say, oh, I've been meaning to do this. Okay, that's good. You don't have anything to do. And she wants you to clean the grout in between the tile, because they don't like that grout to be dirty.
Right, right.
And so then she'll give you that toothbrush and make her little solution. So you soon learn how to entertain yourself.
All right, so being bored is another form. It's a depression. It's a cause and effect.
But you only know what you know. And today, parents entertain their children. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but
Yeah.
sometimes the parents entertain their children means they drinking and smoking some reefer with their children. And that's the problem. That's the problem with our violence. And so when our young black males especially are depending on their mama to fire up a joint with them or get a shot of Hennessy, then they board together. The only thing is the black male doesn't have a job. He may be an ex-offender and things are not going the way he wants to go. And so what he does, he sits down and he's depressed. And depression and suicide is all about a thought. And once he thinks about it, next thing, boom, he's gone.
No, let me say this here. Depression is real.
Yes.
Depression is real. Many times what happens with African American men sometimes don't own up to being depression. There's a strong link between depression and suicide.
But they don't differentiate. Our children are not taught the difference between being depressed and bored, because she's also a former educator. So when our children say they're bored, that doesn't mean you're depressed. But I said, but we already know what we think we know.
I'm saying that there's a difference. There's a difference. We say depression can be bored. There's a difference between boredom and depression. Depression is an illness. It's a sickness. And that's something that people get away from this. That's something that's illness. And many times people, African American men, was saying that for young people between the ages, between the ages of 15 and 25, they found that when these people take some of the antidepressant medication, it makes them depressed. It makes them depressed. At one point, the drug industry was saying, no, it's not true, it's not true. The families have been suing. Now, they can get any type of medication, some of the medication. You see on television, they'll say, if you are within a certain age, don't take this medication. And it's after the first couple of weeks, the person is taking that medication. And at some point, they should have told the family. They should have told the family. Because the brings some depression. They got young people say, you know, I'm taking this medication. Toxic medicines. And they were saying, no, it's not true.
all of a sudden the rate of suicide in the Black community is on a rise. It deals with bullying, depression, the death of a loved one. You know, not too long ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, a 12-year-old girl over here out of Andersonville, Illinois, which is a Chicago public school, committed suicide. She committed suicide, and in fact, it's in the newspaper, where she had complained to the teacher and to her parents that she was being bullied. And so what I can't understand as a parent, if my child came home and said somebody was picking on me, I'm right there at the school. But the bottom line, these parents now have been told, you can't come to school, you can't do this, you can't do that. The parents had tried to talk to the young lady's teacher and the principal, and the young lady had told her parents that not only are the kids bullying her, but also the teacher was bullying her. And this happened at Pierce Elementary School, because this story just happened last week. It's in the news, where this 12-year-old girl committed suicide. Her family, parents found her hanging. She hung herself. And it was all because of being bullied. I mean, this bullying is a form of depression. You know, everybody wants to be liked, you know.
But you know, it's unfortunate though, and you know, I'm in the school system.
Yes.
So even though no one means any harm, but we only know what we know. And a lot of times we only know what we think we know.
Yes.
The school system is not, and I won't just label school system, society is not yet properly equipped to best support these children when it comes to something
Let me see. Bullying is not simple.
No, it's not.
No. Let me finish my part.
Go ahead.
Don't tell me what I'm thinking. Because I'm not saying that bullying is simple. I'm in the school system. I'm with these kids every day. They talk to me about bullying. I know they go to the dean. I know they go to the teachers. I know they go to the principal. But I'm talking about when the subject comes of the bullying. Because compared to not being alive, it is simple. So we have you're bullied or picked on or teased, that there's methods, there's coping mechanisms, there's ways to deal with it in conflict resolution, and taking your life is not on the
It's
list.
not there.
But the system, what my point was I did say, is the system is not yet equipped or sophisticated enough to deal with it. Because when a child comes to a teacher and says they're being bullied, yes, they pull that child to the side that's doing the bullying, but you just really haven't solved the problem. Then when it continues to escalate, then you'll call the parents in. No one knows how to solve the problem. And so it goes on. You would handle it one way, I would handle it another way. So then you do have these children being turned internally and start to harm themselves. And then other kids do it externally and then hurt people. So then they start bullying someone else. Like I said, we're in the school system where you see it every single day.
Jennifer, what's your answer to the mental health thing? Because you're a lobbyist.
I think that one of the things that is really, really lacking is support for the school system. Teachers should be educated. I think that resources should be supplied. We talk about young people committing suicide at a young age. Well, I look at it differently because some of our young people are on medication to help them with their supposedly illnesses like HDD or WCFJ.
And I'm glad you said that they're on there because the parents want the money.
Exactly.
They want the SSI.
Yes,
Come on now.
SSI. So I'm standing, okay? I'm speaking my mind. So now we have these young people that are on this medication, and then now they're experimenting as they get a little bit older with drugs, alcohol. So that affects their mind. So therefore, I believe some form of education for the parents, the teachers, and the health professionals within the school system that see their charts, that understand what they're on and understand what they're dealing with, should really be educated. And just the mental health of just the process of it. And conflict resolution, that may work, but not all the time.
But I had to intervene again, speaking from being in that system with those kids and dealing with them every day. Every child that feels bullied or that commits suicide is not on the medication. We minimize it when we make it seem that isolated. Just everyday children who's not on anything, who from on the surface seems fine. Like I say, you handle me calling you tall or short or overweight differently than the way I would handle it. The adults in the system, your point about being better educated is what's missing. So I would say 90% of those kids are not on medication.
Well, you have to think about the aspect at home too. The family life. What if this child come from a domestic violence background? You know, they're not empowered. They don't even see their parents empowered at home.
Yeah. But the people on the front line that have to deal with it are the ones who lack the education and the resources. Because as a third grade teacher, you may not know how to deal with it, but there should be resources that I can now refer you to the school counselor, which a lot of schools no longer have. The counselor comes 2 days a week or 3 days a week. You know, and those are the kids that's going home, or you're going in the bathroom at the school and cleaning themselves. And those kids are not on, the kids who's doing the bullying not on medication, and that child who's feeling bullied is not on medication. They're just regular, everyday kids in situations that has raised themselves to the level of stress. It's something that they don't have the coping mechanism. They haven't learned that things don't always go the way we perceive it, and I internally haven't been taught how to do it.
One thing that happens is is power in terms of that type of situation. Many times the kids are bullying. Some kids get like 3 times the bullying, passive and perception bullying, and bullying where people get aggressive and they fight. That's when they calibrate and shooting and these kinds of things. They're bullying so they consider the
slow grade.
Yeah, that you are a beautiful, acceptable person. And no one should talk to you, no one should pull your hair, no one should say that you're fat, you're this and that type of stuff. It's a different society. When I was going to school, because my parents, I used to wear everything in payments. They called me shiny payments. That type of situation. But you had a comeback for it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
tell you, the oldest person I know who was bullied, I mentioned, was a man who was 24 years of age. He was gay. He took his life. But those types of situations. So it's a serious type of thing.
And it's a double lesson thing. The bully has to be taught to be sensitive and concerned about another person. Because a lot of times, it used to be when we were kids, people were bullied as an empowerment thing. Now a lot of times what you're noticing about the kids who's doing the bullying is really because they feel less empowered. And so therefore they find a situation where if I can make you feel bad because so many people make me feel bad, then it's your turn. Because here at a school that I was previously at, I was having a conversation with a parent. There was a young child in there, in 10th grade, who was feeling bullied. Did not share with his parents. Did go through the 10 commandments school. The school tells them kids stop bullying him, then they tell you you need to toughen up, blah, blah, blah. But we come to find out that child that was feeling bullied. See, when you say about being bullied, whether it's real or imagined, it has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
We come to find out that child was cutting himself. So eventually you're going to hurt yourself, either intentionally or unintentionally. So the children who's doing the bullying have to be educated on how insensitive it is.
You are listening to In the Know with Mo on WSBC 1240 AM and WCFJ 1470 AM. We're talking about black suicide, mental health, bullying. Hey, next we're going to talk about these pastors and suicide. We'll be back.
When this old world starts getting down and people's lives
You guys okay?
Yeah, sure. We got another half hour.
Can you guys hear okay in your headsets and everything? That's what I was readjusting with everything. That's why I was going like this. I'm trying to be quiet about it too. It's not too being too distracted. Yeah, some people have certain ways of getting things all messed up and some of them things like that. But we'll make sure everyone knows that.
Because I mean, they got all the wires all twisted up.
Well, you're not the first person to have their wires tangled up, so I know how you feel. I know what you mean. I know how you feel because I've had to tangle them up for some other people too. You close these up for us that way.
I don't want to tell.
No, you'll be fine, but that should be okay. But everything else all right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Just making sure I take care of you. I just had to lower your mic down too because it sounded far away when you were talking.
All right. Yeah, we're about ready for that.
Okay, just let me know.
All right, Claude, right here. Claude. Welcome back to In the Know with Mo. This is Maureen Fortin, your host of In the Know with Mo, and I want to welcome back my guest, Claude Stevens. I call him Brother Claude. Jennifer Sam North, my Facebook friend and extraordinary lobbyist, and my media sister, the other side of good and bad. I'm the good person, Rhonda B. Woods.
Everybody sees and say, oh, you're being so quiet.
I am quiet.
Come on, can I get in a couple notes?
Yes, we people, if you're interested in calling in, call us here at 773-792-1240.
This is on the recommend for the person out there, 1-630-482-9696. 1-800-SUICIDE, 1-800-784-2433.
And we hope people don't have to use it, but if you're feeling down and depressed, these are the numbers that you need to call. And you know, and it's sad, I'm saying this because most of every black person in the world, and the other races too, belong to somebody's church or synagogue or something. Wanda and I, we travel through the roads. No, but you don't. You're a heathen. You're a heathen. But she does say, Lord have mercy. We were traveling through Roseland this
I go to
afternoon.
church, I said, Lord have mercy, please pray.
We were traveling through Roseland this afternoon, and there are so many churches in the Roseland area. And it's a shame that the violence is so high as it is, that for every church that's in Roseland, there's a pastor of those little churches that need to be outside speaking to the people. But it's not. So what happens when the young people get feeling depressed and need someone to talk to, they should be able to go and talk to their pastors.
Let me share something with that, Marie, a little bit from a letter I have, because at some of the schools, they do try to reach out to young people so that they can learn to express themselves and know that there's power in words, and then also so that the students being bullied and students is bullied. So a lot of times you'll learn a lot from these kids just by them writing the letters or expressing themselves. So this is a little kid, he said, learning to stick around for the joy in life. I'm sure I wasn't born feeling like I wanted to die, but I can't remember a time in my life when I didn't feel that way. I had a brother who died of academic drive before I was even born. I was told I looked just like him, acted like him, and soon I began to identify with him. I thought to think, if he had died, I wouldn't have been born. And then I wished that it was me instead of him who had died. So like I say, because kids have things going on, my point about this, kids have things going on the inside that on the outside we never know. So there has to be continuous outlets where kids can talk to someone, express themselves, even if it's in fun and games, so that you can get an understanding of what's going on inside their kid, and so that we can of this strong inclination that children, young people, has been missing. I don't know what we got the lesson from as young people, that a lot of things that go wrong in our life, it starts and ends with us. And so whoever taught us that we're our own foundation and we have to be our own strength, our young people just don't know that. When they reach outside of themselves for help and support and don't feel they're getting it, they don't know where else to turn. So I don't know how we as a society, and I think that too lends itself to so much of the violence that we have out in the street. Kids are so frustrated about whatever it is that they don't know anything else but to lash out.
I want to get this number out again for those who are listening. The number is 773-792-1240. Because I'm getting several phone calls on my cell phone, and this is the number that you need to call in to talk to my guest, which is 773-792-1240.
I wanted to say that suicide prevention services have what we call wall versus suicide factors. And this 10 different things. So the first thing they do is religious and spiritual prohibition, sobriety, best friend, medical advice, counseling, doing things, responsibility, fear of God, and God forgiveness. So that religious aspect, the spiritual aspect, is number one. Churches there. The suicide prevention services are there. The person there, Stephanie Weaver, mother committed suicide. She was telling me that one committed suicide. I was saying, well, it wasn't anything else. She was saying that that was situation. That's not the case. About suicide. There's a crisis. The crisis is the 1 or 2 years in the process of going to die. That's the crisis. Many times, just by saying, because the person is ambivalent about suicide. They're ambivalent. And you can get in there and talk to them as a teacher, but the person, the student can come to you, even the bus driver on the bus. If you look at a kid and say good morning, or speak to that kid, and the kids, just certain languages, certain things they say. Or see, good, when instead of saying good to come see you, say goodbye. Just trick words.
Let's take this caller here. We have a caller. You're live on the line. Welcome to In the Know with Mo. too, that was Dr. Claude Stevens, who is one of my sponsors of In the Know with Mo. She's an educator, and her question is very relevant because I have sitting here one of the young and powerful lobbyists, Jennifer North, and yes, the elected officials in the 9th Ward, Alderman Bill, who needs to go in my opinion, has been contacted. There's 1,001 churches there in Roseland, and also Chicago State, which is a university there, and Jennifer North and her group of young and powerful are always out there marching. But the question to the Claude I would like to see answered is on the veterans, because we just celebrated D-Day, and those veterans are coming home with suicidal tendencies. So has those statistics changed?
Yes, it's even higher for veterans for coming back from the service. In fact, we had some statistics, I think January 23rd, 23rd in Chicago, when they were talking about the high incidence of suicide and military soldiers. And what happens is many times returning veterans at one point, when they were fighting the war, they would give these guys medication, and they were sending them right back.
Yes.
And you had troops, soldiers fighting, who were on medication. Who were on medication, we take the medication, we take the pills, and that's the thing.
But you know what Dr. Stevens had mentioned, the alderman, because we talked about driving through Roseland earlier. The 9th Ward is, you know, you had the Roseland Hospital, and I know the Young and Powerful has done a lot of marches and stuff over there. In fact, Jedediah Brown was on my show last week, was just arrested over there in the 9th Ward during a peace rally. So, but he is out of jail. And as a young leader trying to make a difference with the violence. But it turns out it's not just the 9th Ward, the 8th Ward, it's all the wards in the city of Chicago where there's an elected official elected by the people to represent the people that are part of the process of having mental health centers closed down. But what can we do as people? What we can do is vote those sorry suckers out of office.
You know what, but before we get to the point of even voting them out, because they're only going to come up for election every 4 years. And I know there in Roseland there is an organization that does try to do alcohol and substance abuse and depression and stuff like that. But it's only one organization out of 2. I know I interviewed this gentleman, I don't know his name, but I do know Roseland there is one of them. But the thing is, we have to speak out long before we start trying to vote them out. Because the election only comes around every so often.
Well, they've been speaking out in the 9th Ward for some years, and I'm using the 9th Ward because we counted so many churches as we came from 111th and the Expressway all the way to King Drive. The many churches and the people are standing outside. But what happens? You still are dealing with the mental health issues. You're still dealing with suicide. You're still dealing with the pastors not being accessible to their congregation, that they can sit down and chat. I belong to a mega church, and believe me, I cannot go in there and just talk to my pastor at will. What's the purpose of me having a pastor? Whereas before, when I worked with another organization, if kids or parents were expelled from school or the parents were losing the custody of their children, my suggestion was to talk with the pastor first or counsel. That doesn't happen anymore.
So the thing is, well, the accountability piece is not there. You know, we as a community, we don't hold our elected officials accountable. We don't even hold, our pastors accountable for not, coming out and not having their doors open. But they'll be the first one to want to do a fundraiser and support, their alderman during election time. So I think that is a great injustice to our communities.
Well, one thing for, like, the teacher that just got killed from Gwendolyn Brooks School, when they did the rally over there, a vigil for her, the family was not embraced by the clergy and the elected officials. They were doing photo ops where the people who were standing at the vigil were embracing the family of Betty Howard. So it's a problem. And you're right, we don't even hold our clergy, our pastors accountable because we're too busy giving them building fund money.
Dr. Claude mentioned something some time back at a conference, that there's a connection between homicide and suicide.
Yes.
In terms of the hopelessness. each is based on hopelessness. And many times we don't follow through because so often we don't accept the fact that blacks do commit suicide. But there is an organization, it's called the National Organization of People of Color Against Suicide, that people can get information. And that number is 1-202-549-6039.
And Maureen, you know yourself and myself, by us being educators, see, this is the one thing where I feel that conversation is always the motivator. Because each of us is going to come from a different frame reference. First of all, based on our own experience, and then that's how we develop our opinions. But being educators, I'm always concerned about how do we as the elders, as adults, empower young people to recognize within themselves that they have the strength that they need to be okay.
Yes.
You know, and then what are the signs? I know in our era, it was always about the drugs. You were always concerned about that young person being on drugs. Now today, it's well beyond drugs because you could get kids committing suicide who never even took a substance, period. And so therefore, there's some type of internal, something, they're missing a page.
Well, let's take this next caller. Welcome to In the Know with Mo. You're live on the line. Yes, welcome, Jacqueline.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Do you have your radio? Do you have your radio on? We're getting some feedback. Okay, can you turn it down because we're getting feedback? Yes, we can. Welcome. You're on live now, Jacqueline. Okay. And I want to thank you for calling in because that's what people need to realize. You know, so many times before blacks, especially African Americans, we believe we're in denial. This doesn't happen to me.
Did you recognize your own symptoms, or did someone in your family suggest that you need to speak with someone? Good. I'm glad she left that message with you before she left here. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline.
See, that's a...
Can I say something?
All right. Thank you.
And that's one of the keys too, Maury. One of the biggest things they found with suicide and post-traumatic stress is trauma.
Mm-hmm.
People have been traumatized. Mm-hmm. And sexual abuse is one of the number one things that people carry with them. Mm-hmm. I had a counselor say many times people who are sexually abused, they turn it on themselves because they feel that they were participants.
Right.
I had a young woman call me who had said that she was sexually abused, and she was blaming herself. That someone, she was 7, 8 years old, someone climbed into, a relative climbed into the window and was sexually abusing her, and she was blaming herself.
And it seems like last week in New Jersey, I believe it is, a young lady, college student, committed suicide. She was in school taking a test for German, her German language, and her professor caught her cheating and belittled her in front of the class. She got up, left, walked out, and then went to the bridge and committed suicide.
And that takes me back to how do we get into a young mind long before she gets in college and empower them
Yes.
so that they'll know the strength that's within them. Because to give the impression that there's nothing that's going to go wrong in our society, or when things go wrong in society, it's an external fix, is a disservice to that young person. Because it all begins and ends with us. And it's so sad, like I say, the letter that I was reading, this young child is 11 years old and does not remember a time when he didn't wish he was dead.
What's the youngest age of a child, if anyone knows, that might have committed suicide?
The youngest I know was at suicide prevention was a young girl who was 7 years old. 7 years old. Her mother had OD over drugs. She said she wanted to be back with her mother. She was walking to school with her brothers and sisters. They had to cross a railroad track. And they said this kid deliberately walked in front of a train. Deliberately walked in front of a train. And one had mentioned before, sometimes they don't have the concept
How permanent
of
that
how
is.
permanent death is. And that's one of the things we tell people, that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.